Hello everyone, I am Kim with Abundant Life Tarot, and this is our Lesson 3 lecture. I actually have already did a lecture workshop earlier today and I forgot to record it, and it was actually really cool because I got to interact with a couple of folks who joined me in that session. So hence why I'm recording a redo, but without any students this time. And it got me to thinking that in the future, I think I will have a more dynamic exchange. I love when the students can actually, it's not just me talking, but we are engaging in conversation. So I'm happy it happened this way because I got to see which flavor I like. And I like the flavor of working with folks who sign up for the Zoom lecture and interact and chat with me and, add to the discussion. So unfortunately, we're not going to have that dynamic, but the next time we will, because I will remember to hit the, um, I will remember to hit the record button. All right, so thankfully though, I do have notes that we can discuss that, and I'll recall like some of the points that the students mentioned. So let's get started. So we're going to discuss the wish list and why many choose to use this particular device in their deck collecting habits. I personally use a wish list, and that is because it helps me to keep track of the decks that called to me, the decks that I want to do further research on, and ultimately it may be where I draw the inspiration to get a new deck from, because if it's on my wish list and I'm feeling that urge to buy a deck, then I can go to said wish list, and if it's on there, I'm like, yay, it's all the better. And it's a way of keeping track of that. But a wish list can be so much more than even that. And we're going to talk today about that. The lecture that I did this afternoon with some students or peoples who joined me, it was an hour long, but because we're not having that dynamic, I would imagine that this lecture is not going to be nearly as long. So we're going to divide this lecture into who, what, when, where, and why. I found that to be the easiest way to talk about this subject and to really cover all the aspects of it. One of the things I want people to take away from is that, having a wish list is not a hard and fast thing. It ultimately should be the goal that it helps to refine your taste, not to be just something that's strictly adhered to, but there will be times when you may run across a deck that's not on your wish list. Your wish list, though, if you've been analyzing it over time, you will start to be able to have a discerning eye on the deck you want to add to your collection, so that when you do encounter a deck that's not on your wish list, then you will have those tools already intuitively built in, already conditioned by you analyzing your wish list over the past, months, years, however long you've had it. You can feel confident about that purchase. So that's another way that the wish list helps, is helping you to really analyze why a deck made it to that list, why maybe a deck is no longer on that list, and also to keep track of it. And I'll show you my personal wish list as well in just a few moments, so you can see what I do and how I work with it. So let's first talk about the who. And before I get started diving into the lecture, I have to give you a couple of warnings. I have a delivery person coming, and I don't know if they're going to come right in the middle of this. And my husband is due home any moment from getting off work. So there might be a little bit of noise, and I may have to pause the video to answer the door for the delivery person. Who? Let's talk about the who. Deck collectors, new and old, new and seasoned. The who are you, the collectors. And a deck wish list is for those who A, want to keep track of their desired decks, B, those who want to be held accountable to their budget and to their collection, or maybe to their loved ones, or ultimately to themselves, and C, to remember what decks really call to them, right? And to stick to what's on your wish list. That is the ultimate thing about a wish list. Some people keep it, just loosely with a notebook here. They have a notepad and they just write it down. Others maybe use a Word document, a Word, blank sheet. Many of us use spreadsheets like myself. There's apps, and we'll talk more about those in a moment. But there's some people who don't want to use a wish list or don't feel the need to, and we'll talk about that as well. But we're talking about the folks who may benefit from the wish list, okay? Those folks could be the ones who are just starting out and they happen upon this course and then they realize, oh, I don't want to be like Kim, where she like bought all these decks willy-nilly and now she's got this huge collection of decks that some decks she uses quite a bit, some she doesn't. Or the more seasoned collector who knows the benefit of a wish list, but maybe has not really adhered to it really much. What compelled me to really start to rely on a wish list and even to track my purchases. I've been doing that for a while, but 2020 was a unique year for many of us. We went through the pandemic and it caused me to be hyper aware of where my money is going. And before the pandemic, before we had to shut down, right, I was already tracking my deck wish list because I was in a depth year starting in January 2020. A depth year is when you make a decision to refrain from making purchases, or maybe you only buy replacement items of said, like for me, it was decks and crystals and such. So I had a low buy part of my depth year where I allow myself some latitude and gave myself some criteria around my purchases for the depth year. And then there's a no buy portion where I'm not supposed to buy any decks. So, the depth year helped me to see the real benefit to having a wish list, because whereas before my depth year, I had just 2 or 3 decks on my wish list because I was an impulsive buyer or shopper. Now there's 37 on my wish list because I have to stop and pause and think, do I want to make this purchase? Do I want to break my depth year rules? And in the class today that I held for this topic, one of the students talked about how when she got ready to add a deck to her wish list, she would remove 2 that had been on there. And I love that because I realized I didn't have an official rule around that, but I tend to do that as well. And I thought that was helpful because, my wish list has grown quite a bit because of my depth year. And I like to keep it a little more lean if I can help it. I'm a little anal retentive about that. Because truthfully, I'm not going to always get the deck that's on the wish list. And I'll show you what I mean in a moment when I show you my wish list. So I think that what's so cool about, and I mentioned it earlier, what's so cool about wish lists is how it helps you to refine your own personal taste. And if it's a wish list that's made public, your family members and your loved ones can be able to go there and peruse your wish list. And if you keep it up to date, if you keep your wish list up to date, you won't get duplicates. You won't get decks coming in that you already have. I forgot to mention that in the class, so I'm actually glad I circled back around to do this little video here, because that's important. If you are someone who has a wish list on Amazon, for example, I personally don't have, I have a wish list on Amazon, but that's not my main wish list. But let's say that is your main wish list, or the bulk of the decks you want are available on Amazon or some other big retailer. Loved ones, if you make it public or available to them, can be able to pick decks for you and treat you to a deck versus some shirt that you don't want to get. You know what I mean? So there's a benefit to a deck wish list in that regard, but the deeper level is about the cooling off period for you. It is about having a moment to pause, maybe do a couple of the spreads I offer in my Choosing Your Next Deck Curating Your Collection course. They are free to download, and you can ask yourself, should I be adding this, asking your existing decks, should I be adding this deck? It's on my wish list. It's been on my wish list for 6 months. What say you existing decks? And chances are the current decks you have are going to give you some honest answers, and it's up to you to act upon that, right? It's free will in that regard. But it just really, the cooling off period is the most powerful part. Aside from the refinement of your taste with a wish list, the other cool thing about a wish list is the cooling off period. The moment, like, we laughed in the course today that we took about how some of us, we might even have a wish list. I personally did for a long time, but it would be, okay, I throw you on the wish list. Now I put you in, you know, I first had you in the save later section. Now I put you into the cart, and now I'm purchasing you. And there was no cooling off period. Or maybe I just made a straight up purchase without even consulting my deck wish list. Those things happen. But if you're more honest with yourself, more intentional, and cut yourself some slack, the deck wish list offers a vast opportunity of learning about yourself and about your collecting habits than you previously may have thought. All right. So I think, did we talk about this? Are there instances when it's okay to buy decks on the wish list? Yes, it is. Not that I'm the all-knower of this, but this deck, the Uncommon Tarot, was not on my wish list at all. I remember hearing about the creator, Shaheen, creating this deck, but I didn't put it on my wish list. I owned the Lunar Nomad Oracle by the same creator and same publisher. So I was like, I have a good experience with this one. I don't really use this one as much, and I've been hoping for the longest time that a tarot deck would come along and go with it, because this was supposed to be used as a Lenormand, but it's too large to be used. The cards are way too big for that. But as an oracle and that complements a tarot deck, these two are magic. So I bought it. It violated my rules on my deck year, and I was still okay with it because I've been studying my shopping habits, studying my taste, really honing in on what I really love, which is collage art, a diverse, imagery, a good guidebook, and, it's a bonus if it's borderless, and it's amazing when it's tarot sized and easy to shuffle. So it hit all the things that I know about my preferences. And I also know that I hadn't really bought any decks in a while, and I wanted to treat myself to it because of the rough September I had. So yeah, there are times when you're going to buy decks that are not on the wish list, and that's okay. This is not like us or me saying you can't have decks on that are not on the wish list. That would be ridiculous. I don't adhere to that, but I'm saying that make it your main thing. Make it I'll show you in a minute, because I think I can show you better than I can tell you. All right, let's answer some more questions to ponder. Are there people who choose, let's see, are there people who choose not to keep a wish list, and why? And so I posted to the group. I think everyone who was there probably has a wish list, right? And I'm hoping that when I publish this to the greater group out there later, that you guys can share. Maybe you're one of those people who don't need one, and that's okay. There is no right or wrong answer here. I would say maybe the why could be that you have access to money and deep pockets, and you don't have to really concern yourself with space, time, and money, right? Because when you're a collector, that's what it's about. You need space to house those decks. You need money to purchase them. You need patience, because you put in time to find this deck, time to back it, time to support it. And if it's not even created yet and you backed it on Kickstarter, for example, or it's a pre-order, you have to have patience and give up a lot of your time, so to speak, towards this deck. So, if you have that unlimited, situation going for yourself, then knock yourself out. No one is saying that you are wrong. You are A-okay with what you're doing. But I'm saying for people like me who have come to a moment in time where I realized I'm now in a new phase of my life, and actually I need every penny I can get to make this transition as smooth as possible. That's important to me. Now I have a new, now with the depth year, it allowed me to see things for what they were, put things in perspective, realize that I have been killing myself, working all these extra hours, working all, my business, working my day job. And I would console myself with purchases. I would say, you know what, I work hard and I deserve it. On the wish list it went, or into the shopping cart it went, right? But with the death year, that kind of ended. People still gifted me decks. I received decks as gifts throughout the year. I purchased a few. Um, but I got to see my life for what it was, and that I was working way harder than I needed to, and trying to work hard for a home that's bigger than what my needs are. And so I just invite you all to take a moment to just give yourself that space. And like I said, I'm going to be doing more lectures, so stay tuned for them, and definitely join the group ones, because oh my goodness, that was fun today to interact with someone in that dynamic. So definitely join me. But it just, the deck wish list, the death year, all of these are tools at our disposal. They are free for most of us, actually, to do these things, these simple things to honor ourselves, honor our finances, honor our collection. And someone, I was in a live for Jen's Balanced Tarot. Was on her live, or her Facebook channel. And Simon from the Hermit's Cave, he was on her channel, and someone in the chat, I can't remember who, had said, I think it was the chat, maybe it wasn't in that chat. I apologize. It was in my chat, I believe, my chat from Wednesday on Facebook. My apologies. So I'm mixing all my social media platforms up. It's so ridiculous. Anyways, the point is, this gentleman said that he does a, like he was going to do a month long, it might have been my YouTube comments. Sorry guys. It just doesn't it drive you crazy when you were like, I want to know in my mind, I want to know who said that. And now I remember, I think it's my comments to one of my videos. And he was going to do a deaf month person, he was like, and then he canceled all his pre-orders, right, for that month. And he said, okay, if it means a lot to me, then the next month I'll get them, or what have you. So he makes it work for him. Everybody has a different way that they can make things work for themselves, right? So I thought that was interesting. And I love having these kind of conversations, because we talk so much about procuring the decks. We talk a lot about new decks that are coming out. And I know I'm guilty of it. I do unboxings, and I want to talk about, when I actually in company with others, I want to talk about what's next and what people just got. But there's more to collecting decks than that. And there will be in the future lectures, because this is all coming from my course. If you want to see what my lectures are going to be on, you can just simply follow the course syllabus, and you'll see we're right now in lecture 3, or lesson 3. But I will talk about other reasons why people collect decks, which is the spiritual situation, right? And so there's much more to collecting decks than just getting them. I want us to start now moving to 2.0, right? We're at 1.0, we're all collecting all our decks we want around us. Now it's time to take it to the next level. But a lot of us are still in that collecting mode and that collecting phase in our life. And that can be very healthy, and then it also can tend to be unhealthy. So I'm not saying that these things to I'm giving people different tools to help them in their collecting journey. And that's it, and that's all. Yeah. Okay, so, and then I just was going to say who may benefit the least from a deck wish list. Like I said, those who maybe got those unlimited resources. And then finally, question number 5, which is a question of mine to you all, is what are your personal takeaways from this part? Because I think that's important. Okay, so now we're going to focus on the what. The what about the wish list, right? Deck wish list. What is it? What is it not? We had fun in the course today because I was talking about what it's not. What it's not is, you know, you got your shopping carts, various places here or there on Etsy, on Amazon. I don't know, you might have had some saves on your Kickstarters. I know I've done that before when you save a project. That's not a wish list, okay? One of the fun things I like to do with myself, because I like to entertain myself apparently, is I like to go to like some of the Facebook tarot and oracle card collecting groups and maybe search my name or search a deck and see what my thoughts were on it. And literally there are comments from me from 2018, 2019, maybe even 2017 where I was lusting over a deck. That's not a wish list, although that could be evidence to support a purchase, but it is not a wish list. So we've laughed at what it's not. I would say that a deck wish list could be solely on Amazon if you're only dealing with decks that are available there. But many of us are backing decks. Many of us are going to make playing cards or printer studio. Some of us are, yeah, I mean, there's all these different ways of how we get decks. Some of us buy them secondhand. And to have one spot for all of that is best. That's what keeps things accessible. So, just making sure I'm not missing anything here. All right. Now, what is it? What is it? We talked about what it isn't. Let's talk about what is a deck wish list. A deck wish list is something that is where we got a list of things that we've put together and can consult and update and analyze, right? And some people use different apps. They use apps that you find that are useful for storing decks or books you own. So I made a list, and I will actually, the little topics that I've gone over today, I will put in some sort of bulleted fashion, like minutes notes, so you all can look at this later. It won't be a transcript. Maybe I can do a transcript, but probably not going to go through the effort. So it can also be, like I mentioned before, it can be captured or tracked on Amazon. You could try Litzy. Some people use Goodreads, others use Scribd, LibBib, Serial Reader, Delicious Library, Rico, Library Theme, Book Catalog, Gertie, Book Crawler. Again, the reason why I chose not to use apps, because I sometimes, if the app is on my computer or on my phone, because I'm recording videos all the time, I need all the space I can get, so I'm not really trying to have apps. I like Google Sheets the best because I can access it from anywhere and everywhere. So can my loved ones. So, you know, and it's free. And not that these aren't free. These are totally, I'm sure, free. But it's a one-stop shop for me. I don't even have to really log on to access it. I just go onto my laptop and hit Google Sheets, and there it is. Or I look at my phone in its app and get it there. So ease and accessibility is super important, and that also helps to make a deck wish list work. Now we're going to share the screen, okay? We're going to go, where is it? I'm going to go, where's the, did I delete out of there? Let's do this. I want to share with you my sheets. So this is what we did in the course today. Let's go to my deck collection. As you can see, I have many books. So I'll take you through this. We did something similar in the course lectures or lessons in the Choosing Your Next Deck course, but I wanted to give you a list of different options aside from an Excel sheet or a Google spreadsheet situation. And then also give you a little more insight as to why I chose what I chose. And one of the students there also was like, when we talked about keeping track of your decks and the importance of it, she mentioned that she had a flood and that it was so helpful that she had a spreadsheet that tracked the date of the purchase, that it tracked the item that, the deck, where it was purchased, how much she paid, all of that good information in a spreadsheet. And it was easy for her to be able to share that with her insurance company. Now, that's not necessarily Wishlist, but I'll show you in a moment how my wish list ties to my main list that I track of my actual purchases. And so you'll understand that that's another reason why it's important to track. All right. So let's go through my list. So before we get started, I need to show you guys my purchases to date. I started to track this because I thought this was interesting. So in 2016, that's when I really roughly started tracking my actual purchases and things. You see that what I clocked on there was $164.63. 2017, I spent a total of $1,023. 2018, I spent it, so you can see it increasing, $1,326.64. And in 2019, I went up to $1,439.82. I need to update for 2020 because I think it's going to be, I'll show you in a moment. I think it's going to be like 400 when it's all said and done, which that's in large part to me doing a low buy year. And let us move to the wish list tab. So we laugh because, well, I laugh because I'm like, oh my gosh, I got 37. This is an example that, actually, I'm going to delete this for a moment, show you what I do. Okay, so here's my wish list, as you can see. Okay, so what I do is when I get a new hankering for a new deck, I come to my wish list and I insert a row right here. So the most recent of decks are typically the ones that are at the last that's been entered. And let's say I want the Halloween Oracle. Now, I already own this, but let's pretend that I don't. Right here, you see I keep a counta. There's a formula right there of how many decks are on the wish list. I indicate the type right here, okay? The price I've paid, the shipping cost, if I know it or if it's available, and then the total cost of the deck. So we'll say it's $18.99. I thought I had a formula. I did at some point, but maybe not. This is going to be an Amazon purchase or Barnes & Nobles, who knows. So I know it's zero, no, it'll be Amazon, zero shipping. Oops. I need to do a formula here, it's bothering me. And we'll say very likely that I'm going to get this deck because I want to get in time for Halloween. Is it a pre-order? It's not. Did I pre-order it? No. Although there are times when these would be yes, yes, right? Is this released? It is released. Sold out? It's not. It's available. Now, today, 16, not the 21st. Where did I get that from? Now, what I'm planning on doing next year is adding a column, maybe here, of when I added it versus trying to keep it in the comments over here. I want an actual column just for the dates of when I added it because I think that's going to be important going forward. And so, remember those totals I was showing you before? Just on this tab right here. So in 2019, I spent $1,439.82. And then I would have been on track. Now this is included, there actually be more like 1,500. Because let me say this, 1,500 would be probably what I've spent this year. I've been progressively going up, as you can see in that tracking that I did. And there's no doubt in my mind that that wouldn't change had I not done my death year. I now have only spent about $400, which is quite a bit different than the 1500 I was well on my way to spending. So I just wanted to show you that I like to keep track of the actual amount that it would be an investment to purchase this deck. And then I have a column for likelihood of purchase. So let's say I want to look, I'm ready to buy a new deck. And I'm like, okay, well, which one is that? What's the next one? Oh, look. I'll show you why that's highlighted in a moment. Okay, so out of these four, these are the likelihood of purchase, or very likely. My budget right now only allows for this Golden Girls Tarot. I'll get that. Or I've been really wanting this, and this is true story. I've been really wanting this. I missed the first edition. My death year caused me to miss the second edition. Right now, as of this recording, it is going through a third edition print right now in fall or autumn 2020. I'll see if I'm going to get it or not. It's $47. But knowing that it's an independently produced deck, and I don't know how many more print runs she's going to do, I need to seriously think about if I want to not miss out this time on this third pre-order. So we'll see. So I do that. Let me add these, drop these back. I guess I could hit select. The reason these are highlighted here was because these are decks that are either gifted or I purchased. And so what I'm going to do is take these decks and remove them from here, right? They're going to go on my tarot decks. I'm going to add a few, I think there's like 4 on there. I'm going to add 4 rows and just input all this information. This is my deck collection, and this is what I track all of my tarot decks. And the same for my Oracle. I track all of my Oracle decks. And my Lenormand, not many there. Pre-orders and now I need to update this because the Bone Stone has come. I always forget about the pre-order tab. The Bone Stone is here. So that one's already on my tarot tab because I was doing things differently back then when I ordered it. The Lua Tarot is pending. I can remove the True Heart Intuitive Tarot because I already ordered it or have it. And okay, so then we have the Super Lunaris Tarot, which is a Kickstarter backing. So really I'm going to have these 2 gone and just 2 remaining, which is good because I really don't want any more pre-orders floating around out there. So I have my pre-order and my deck wish list, so I'm going to make some movements here. I've been tracking the purchases that I've been making during 2020, during my death year. So that way at the end of the year, I can show you guys from my wish list what purchases I actually made. I thought that was important to track as well, because then I will know how much money I actually spent and how much I probably would have saved, because knowing my habits before wish list, smish list. I was not really, I had one, but I wasn't really following any particular rules. So there's that. All right, so let me see. So I'll be making some updates after this course and after a reading I have to do. A reading today that I need to get to. So we talked about that. Again, you can use just you can use a notepad on your phone. You could use notepad here, but I choose to use spreadsheets. And one of the students in my class, she used the spreadsheets like I do, and she gave some really good tips as well. I'm so bummed it didn't record. I really enjoyed it today too, but that's okay. It's fine, because then I can just kind of put this information out, and then the next Zoom invite, hopefully more people will be in attendance. I will not forget to record it, and you guys will see that dynamic exchange that we can have, and as we discuss the next topic, because I am curious to know, hopefully it lets me log in. Yes. Oh, I don't want to, because I want to sometimes show you guys stuff without me being logged in. Okay, so we're at Abundant Life Tarot. We're going to go to choosing your next deck. That's the course that this lecture is derived from, by the way, if you're not familiar. So I invite you to check it out. It's at abundantlifetarot.com. And I wanted to show you the next lesson that we're going to be going over. So right now we're talking about the deck wish list and why topic. And then the next lecture will be probably sometime. I wanted to do it next week, but it's probably not realistic. It probably won't be until November, to be realistic. But keep a lookout. It might be as soon as next week, which is like the mid part of October, almost the end, but it could be November. And we're going to talk about taste change as yours. And that's going to be a fun one to get into as well. So definitely check that out, okay? Because like I said, it was super fun and dynamic to actually have someone to chat with as I'm going through this lecture. Now, I also wanted to show you all while I'm here. In the course, I've made some edits. Sorry, new students, I made the edits now. You can go and delete. You can delete the original downloads and download the new ones, right? Because the new ones have revisions, questions added, removed, etc. And then I added a 5th spread. This is all free, by the way. This course is free. So we have the new deck interview spread, the deck collecting philosophy spread, facing my deck collecting habits shadow spread, and the new deck to collection interview spread. That's once the deck arrives. The first one here, the new deck interview spread, I believe that's the one that you consult with your existing decks, your homies, and see if a potential new deck is ready for, like, it'll do well in the fold of the family. And so that's what I did with this deck, the Uncommon Tarot, is I did a deck interview and with my existing decks, and they were like, yeah, this will be a good one to add. So that's that. And then Are We Still Cool spread is for our existing decks that we have in our collection that we need to check in to see why. Okay, maybe it'd be this reason. Why are the readings so off? Are we still cool? Or I haven't used you in like 2 years. Are we still cool? Like, what's going on? Would you be better served in another home, etc.? So I invite everyone to check out this course. And lesson 10, let me go to lesson 10, we'll have all of these spreads, the final points and takeaways. It'll have all of these spreads. Why is it in this language? That's a little weird. There's only one video, I believe, too. It's so weird. It could be because I was, like I said, I was on a website researching. I mentioned this in the class. And the text was in Spanish. I was doing some research on in a country that speaks Spanish. And so I was like, oh. So I think that's why. I think that's so weird that it switched that. It's like a sign for me. More on that later. My daughter and her games. Oh my gosh. Stop it. I don't use this. This is not my normal computer. I use it because the Zoom account is on this one. So if you go all the way down here, you're going to see facing my deck collecting habit spread. Remember the Are We Still Cool? Let's look at that one. What have I gained from our relationship? Is there anything else to gain? And if so, what, etc. So, I could get rid of this. Okay, and so this might be the one. Yeah, so new to the collection interview spread. So this is the spread I was mentioning to you. So you have a deck on your wish list, right? And you're like, should I get it? I don't know. All my friends are on the fence. Some love it, some hate it. I can't decide on what I want to do. Well, you can come here to the new to the collection interview spread, and you can ask your existing decks. It says, if I add this deck to my collection, what are the overall energies surrounding how we'll get along? What is the level of use I will get out of this deck? How will I feel about this deck 6 months from now? Should I get it? How will I feel about this deck 12 months from now? Should I get it? What is the real reason I'm trying to add this deck to my collection? What is the outcome for me and this deck if I postpone getting it? What is the outcome for me if I get this deck now? So that is a useful spread to use when you're trying to ponder on whether or not you're going to add a new deck to your collection. And yeah, I like this one too. Your deck collection philosophy spread. What's the overall energy of my current collection? How large is my collection meant to be? So you see, I have a lot of different spreads, a lot of different questions that really get to the heart of your collection. Okay, so let's go over some tips. Okay. That's bothering me. I can't wait to get off and fix that. It does this weird thing, you know, technology can just never be easy, can it? Just can't. It just, it's fine. We'll fix it. See, it doesn't have that weirdness going on here. Okay, anyways. So what are some tips on how to make the most of wish lists in your collecting habits? And we talked about that. You want to make it accessible. You don't want a lot of barriers to your wish list. What I find is that if you are, you know, using an app and it requires you to constantly log on, or maybe your phone or your computer is filled to the brim with with other stuff that needs to be deleted, so you might delete this app, or whatever the case may be, then it's not so accessible. Or maybe you keep a notepad, but do you keep this notepad with you everywhere? What I find that is if you make it as accessible as possible, that's where you're going to have the most success with maintaining an active, robust, and up-to-date wish list. You can access it on your cell phone at any point. You can even keep a notepad on your phone. Again, though, I like Google because when the device goes away, like I go through tons of laptops because I'm hard on them. I type hard. I work them to death. I get my money's worth. Okay, but what that means is that if I'm getting my money's worth, the device will die, and I'm left with having to piece together what I had on my wish list if it wasn't saved on the SIM card or whatever. So having it on something universal that I can easily access it on any device later is the best bet. That is the tip that I would say is most helpful. Keeping it up to date is helpful because if you have a public facing wish list, you have your loved ones who maybe want to gift you a deck, and they can go there for some up-to-date information about what you want. Also, keeping it up to date keeps you kind of sticking to tracking your wish list, and then ultimately tracking your purchases, right? Because once I've made the purchase, as you see, I've got some updates to make. I've got to remove the True Heart Intuitive from my wish list tab, and also I'm going to add it. Well, yeah, I probably add it there, and then to the 20 wish list purchases, and then I'm going to add it to the tarot decks. It's going to go into a new row. I have like 4 I need to add. There will be added. So it holds me accountable to keeping real-time information. There's a benefit to that. If ever you need to file a claim, a homeowner's claim for your decks for whatever reason, you have that real-time information easily. So that's one thing. That's the practical side. All of it's practical, but the other side that's more like nourishing to your soul is that you have a living, breathing thing that's up to date, current. You can consult at any point and get some really good information from it about your collection, about your taste, about your next purchase. Okay, so what are some challenges to wish lists? We talked about it before, is the accessibility thing. And then also being honest with yourself. And also, yeah, not every deck is going to make your wish list, and that's okay. There'll be times where I'm like, I could have sworn I put that on my wish list, and I didn't. Am I going to beat myself up over that? No. And am I going to put every single deck on my wish list? No, probably not. But the takeaway from a wish list, if you're doing it regularly and working it regularly, is over time your taste will form. You will have a good discerning eye on the things you're adding to your collection. Okay. Are there advantages to using an app versus a less structured method? I've touched upon that before. Sometimes the rigmarole of having to do a bunch of excessive logins or changing your passwords every so often, that could be a kind of a hindrance. Um, so that's why I prefer to use a spreadsheet, and I prefer to use Google's spreadsheet. It's free and it's also accessible and easy for me to use on any device. I'm hoping that, and I invited my students to say, hey, when I publish these videos to the lecture, please chime in and share your experiences with apps of tracking your deck wish list, and most importantly, tracking your deck purchases. We want to hear from you. All right. Next is when. When to add, update, or delete a deck from the wish list. So we talked about that also. So on my wish list, I'm going to be adding, I'm probably not going to add anything. I don't have anything yet to add. I've been trying to be good after my flurry of, and after finding this one, so I'm going to probably duck back again and not look for any decks anytime soon. But I do need to remove some items that have already come into my collection. I was gifted the Dust to Onyx. I know I have the Victorian Romantic on here. Like I said, I've got work to do to update it. So that might be when you want to update it, right? Or sometimes you want to delete a deck that you no longer love. You thought you loved it 6 months ago and you're like, oh, it's not my style. Or I see people are having issues with that deck and I don't really want to have it in my collection. So you might remove it then, or you might keep it on there. Sometimes I keep decks on there just because my feelings could change. So that's okay too. So however you need it to work best for you. The point is to engage with it. All right, so let's see. So we looked at kind of, I hit two birds with one stone with that. Is that I showed you how I work with my personal deck wish list. Right here. So you have the deck wish list. So basically the name of the deck, type of deck, and we went through all of that. Okay, just tracking what, making sure I cover everything. Okay, questions to ponder. Do I always add every deck to the wish list? And we talked about that earlier. No. Most times though, yes. And most times my purchases will be from a deck that's on the wish list. But can I say 100% of the time that's happening? No, that's not being honest or real or even necessary. This is the rule, but not necessarily the hard and fast rule, if that makes any sense. It's a tool, okay? So what are some benefits to keeping up to date on your wish list? And we talked about that as well. Folks who want to purchase this decks, you won't be getting, duplicate decks in the mail because you're keeping it up to date, right? I think I did it with a book. I've heard of people accidentally buying two decks because they didn't realize they purchased the deck already. Another reason why not keep track of these things. But I did it with a book, and I was a little disappointed in myself. But I don't track my book purchases. I'm only tracking my deck purchases. So I saw how that happened, but it's frustrating, And so you want to avoid that if you can. Now, if you're intentionally buying multiple decks of the same one, that's okay. No judgment. I have some of my workhorse decks. I have a backup, and I've actually had to start using the backup because I've worn out the original one. So no judgments. But it's those moments when you accidentally order them. You're like, don't I have this deck? Oh my gosh, I do. It's just those kind of moments that you want to avoid, and this helps that. It's a little inconsequential, but it's a headache to have to send things back or try to sell an extra or even to store an extra that you didn't really want to have in the first place. What are some disadvantages to always referring to the wish list? Disadvantages to always referring to the wish list? Maybe always lusting after decks. I kind of do a set and forget. That's that cooling off period. You set it on there. You go to sleep on it for a few days. It ain't gonna sell out yet unless it's like you're at the 28th day on the Kickstarter backing. And even then, usually the creators will have the excess decks that they have on pre-order on their own personal website. The cooling off period will help you. So I would say the disadvantage though is hawking your wish list and being so rigid that you're hard on yourself when you actually make a impulse purchase, or you're hard on yourself when someone gifted you a deck and you're like, I should not have gotten that. That's not on my wish list. It's a tool. It is not meant to minimize your feelings, minimize who you are as a person or who you are as a collector. But again, these are just tips to help those who don't know on their journey. We talk, like I said, and I'm beating a dead horse, but we talk so much to our new collectors, our new deck collectors, and our new readers um, about I think we give conflicting information, to be honest. I think the seasoned community sometimes gives conflicting information, but yeah, I realize why that is, because it's very personal. Yes, collectively we all collect decks for different reasons, but it's really personal. But it can be confusing to like a person new to the situation, and then they're like, well, this person said this person said that. That's when we come back to self and realize what works best for me. What is going to do, what is going to feel good to me about my collecting habits. So there's that. All right. When should one begin to keep a wish list? Probably the moment you realize you're going to be collecting some decks. It sneaks up on you. I tell you what, it snuck up on me because I had a tarot deck for one tarot deck for the longest time. Then I got two. And then Oracle, for some reason, I was so enamored with Oracle. I think it was just easier to approach than tarot. And there was such a stigma in my extended family about tarot that I felt like Oracle cards could kind of be passed over, or passed off as affirmational, devotional cards. So yeah, but where was I going with that? Over time though, it feels like we give our folks so much conflicting information, but it's a personal thing. And you just got to have the tools at your disposal to get to your personal deck collecting philosophy. So that way you feel confident about the purchases you're going to add. So that's right. The question was, when should one begin to keep a wish list? Well, when they know they're going to start collecting, when they know that they've moved past the third deck, so now probably it's time to start tracking. Are there reasons someone should forego keeping a wish list or adding an item? So let's first talk about other reasons someone should forego keeping a wish list. We touched upon it before. Some people have deep pockets, deep resources, access to space, time, and money. They don't need to necessarily keep track. Some people don't desire it. Some people, it's too much for them to manage. They've managed a lot already. So it's not for everyone. This particular tip is not for everyone. I'm going to probably have other tips that aren't for everyone, right? There are going to be other, for example, in the course, we talk about taste change. How's yours? That's pretty universal. So I think people will be able to find something there for themselves, but maybe people aren't really so concerned about spiritual considerations in collecting decks. Maybe some people don't buy the whole myth surrounding deck collecting. One moment, babe. So, anywho, okay. When should one begin to see? I was supposed to be done with this course, but before my husband came, and I was, and then I didn't record. Okay, so are there reasons someone should forego keeping or adding an item? I think so. And I talked about this a lot in my course or in today's lecture with the students, the peeps. And that could be those mass market, oh guys, that could be those mass market decks that will come and linger, right? So here's the thing. I don't always add decks to my wish list, and especially pre-pandemic, I didn't. If it was mass market and I was kind of iffy on it, I'm not going to add it because I figured, oh, I'll get it if I want it, or I'll add it to the wish list later. Post-pandemic, we find that the publishing houses have limited staff. Due to social distancing, they cannot keep up with the demands of the mass market decks. So there are some decks that are temporarily falling out of, what do you call it? Out of print, but temporarily, I would imagine. It's just they don't have the resources. But with that being said, even with that being the case, I still don't always rush to put every single deck onto my wish list. It's just not necessary. And I think it can become overwhelming. I have 37 on my wish list right now. Where is it? And that feels too many to me. And I'm going to go through and see if really those are the ones I really want to keep on there, and if so, why. We can even go, let's go to the tab of unlikely. Oops, I put plain. Oh, I see why I did that. Okay, so we have unlikely, the 5-cent tarot, Oracle of Mystical Moments tarot. These are unlikely ones, and I'll tell you why they're unlikely for a moment. Transcendent Journeys Oracle, the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcana's first edition, special edition, the Hilda Tarot, and I actually got the Marielle Tarot gifted to me recently. The 5-cent, because I think I kept going back and forth over, do I want all of the language on the cards or not? I have cards that kind of do that, and not as beautifully or successfully as the 5-cent tarot, but I already have something that's along the same lines. That's why it's on the unlikely selection. Then we have Oracle and Mystical Moments Tarot. Beautiful artwork, gorgeous artwork, right? But I'm not even really using the Oracle of Mystical Moments. And what I would hope, the Oracle and Mystical Moments, I guess. Yeah, it's the Oracle. I don't know if I got that right, but I rarely use it. So I'm worried about getting the tarot, and maybe it might be magic. Maybe getting that tarot will actually unlock the usage. Like this one unlocked the usage for this deck. So let's see. So that's another reason. The Transcendent Journeys, I can't even remember what that one's about. I'm gonna have to look that up. It says it is a Llewellyn deck. Maybe it's a new one, but I forgot what it is. We have the Afro Goddess Tarot Arcana's first edition, special edition. I already have the first edition regular size, and so I almost can't justify getting the second edition, to be honest. I want it badly, and if it was gifted to me, I'd be grateful, but it doesn't make sense. The Hilda Tarot is very kitschy, very themed, and that's what I like about it. But would I use it in readings for others? Probably not. And I'm actually at a place where I'm considering downsizing as my nest gets smaller and emptier. There's not a need for a big old house, so that means there's not a need for a bunch of decks. And I don't want a bunch of decks that are beautifully, like the Hilda is $55 plus $8 in shipping, $63 in investment. Great deck, but it may just be a deck that I appreciate from afar for now. So, and then the Marielle, the reason why it was unlikely, because I wasn't too sure I wanted the second edition, because I didn't like the change of the cards from the first edition. But then a kind friend gifted me her first editions, and I love that, and I love her. I'm like, okay, so it's no longer unlikely. It was unlikely because the first edition went out of print, and now it's likely because now it's very likely. Now I own it. Now it goes over to the tarot deck section right here. So that's how I work with it here. All right. Let me have to pause for a moment. And okay, we look at the where wish list. Okay, so the where. Sorry, I have a distraction. We talked about this earlier, about the wish list having to be accessible. So it needs to be accessible anywhere, everywhere, and any time. If it's not, you're probably not going to use it. So just keep that in mind. And this, oh, and I put a sentence here just so I make sure I say it. This helps in easily updating the wish list in real time versus trying to remember or recall later what decks we want to add to our list. That's something more for our comfort, our peace surrounding not getting a deck. Is it really a big deal that you don't add a deck to your wish list and you forget about it? No, it's not. It's probably actually welcome for your budget and your wallet. However, it feels good when we add it, right? It feels good when you put it real time. You value yourself, your needs, your desires, your wants, and you honor it by putting it on the wish list and saying, I'll revisit this, I'll sleep on it, I'll have a cooling off period with it. Okay. And then the why. We're finally at the why, guys. We made our way through. The actual lecture today was like an hour and like 5 minutes. So I don't even know how long this video is. We'll see. Does it show me? We'll see. I don't know. The why. So wish list gives those of us who need it a sense of security and the freedom to not make an instant purchase. So I talked all throughout this lecture about the cooling off period, and it's so important to have that in anything, really. Um, we often do a cooling off period with major purchases like purchasing a home, a car, going back to school, those big investments. I think we rarely do that with decks. And there could be a number of reasons why we don't. But I think we owe it to ourselves to do that, we owe it to ourselves to honor where we are in our life. And if we don't have it like that to be ordering a bunch of decks, then we don't have it like that right then and there. And that's okay. The wish list is the catch-all to capture your decks that you really want. That's why I wanted to say, make it as dynamic and as fun for you as possible. And it'll work for you. You'll be able to consult it when you have those lulls. Maybe it's been a long summer and you didn't buy any decks. Now you can look over here and look at your likely section, maybe, and just say, you know what? I think my likely is the most. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and some of these I've already got. So, that's just some things to think about. I like for us to sometimes take these basic things and go deep with it, right? And I think when we start to really look at our collection and be honest with ourselves, we'll say, damn, you know, we, I, I added all these things and yeah, that's fine. And I'm okay with where I'm at with my collection. But wouldn't it be nice to look at our collection one day and say, you know what, every single deck that's on here, I'm either using it or I know exactly why it's here. I know why it's in my collection. That feels better to me than just all these haphazard purchases. But I know people are in different headspaces, different places in their life, different financial means to get things. So that's why it's so, independent. Okay, so, oh, and I mentioned this before too. That cooling off period is helpful in you employing some of those spreads that I've suggested at consulting your existing decks to see if a new one should be added. And then you could also maybe, if you're like your collection's at 100 or 200 or more, and you're like, I really don't want to add any more decks until I've gotten rid of some. And so these spreadsheets help you to kind of work through that, right? And if you are aware of the decks you already have, you also can make sure you're not buying duplicate decks. You also can start to say, I'm going to sell a few of these decks to make room for these new decks that I'm adding to my wish list. So you see how that dynamic, it can start to be a living, breathing, moving thing that you consult. If you're a collector, then you got to be serious about your collection, by the way, is what I'm also saying. Like, you can be serious about your collection and not track it at all, and that's okay. And I know many people who do not track it. But if you ever needed to file a claim, you have that. If you ever wanted to quantify what the value of your decks are, that's helpful to know too, right? Because even on your homeowners or your renters insurance policies, you can add what's called a personal articles floater endorsement. We call it a PAF. And if you can list the value of that, those decks. So let's say your collection is worth $5,000, and you could say that, and you can pay for replacement value. You can pay for a small premium additional to your homeowners or your renters policy to cover for your decks, because they're considered fine art. They're considered art. So yeah, that's just a little tip. So if you're serious about your collection, then be serious about it all the way, and really be intentional. Like check in with it periodically, analyze it, see what you've been up to. It was eye-opening for me, but I'm so glad I was like looking into this. My depth here kind of pushed me and thrusted me to do that. And I thought it would be great to share my journey of how I'm going through all of this with you. Yeah. And so now I'm even at a phase now to add, I think I have added a column on, it says potential giveaway. This is on my tarot tab. The potential giveaway is one where I might either literally use a deck in a giveaway, or I might sell it, or I may gift it, like give it to someone, you know, not just in a giveaway. I usually give new decks in giveaways, by the way. But in a, like if I just want to say, hey friend, I don't need this deck anymore, I'm not really using it, would you like to use it? So I have a section or a column for that. So we put maybe. I can't even bring myself to say yes. So I have, let's see how many. I have 24 maybes on my tarot list that could more than likely flip to yes, but we'll see. I'll be patient with myself and compassionate, and that's also what you need to do as well. Okay, if you need to do anything with this whole process, be compassionate with yourself. Don't judge harshly, just observe and be aware, and then make tweaks and adjustments to serve you. Okay. So also another benefit to why we would keep a deck wish list is it allows us to analyze the decks we are drawn to and why. Okay. And I love, and obviously, you know, I'm an analyst by trade, and I love analyzing. So sad. I love analyzing things, and I love looking at data over time. Data that's captured over a period of time, and looking at it and doing, this is what I was trying to say, and doing an analysis of it is so important. And analysis doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated at all, okay? It's just simply looking at, oh, let's look at my wish list. Let's go back here. I'm starting to see that I really like modern decks, colorful ones, fully illustrated, they're tarot. And I can kind of, I know this because I've been studying these decks. So, and I've been looking at YouTube and etc. Let me drop all of them back in. So I'm starting to see a pattern of my tastes emerging from this wish list. And I invite you to start to see the patterns emerging in your own wish list. It's just something to acknowledge. That also helps you in your discernment, and that gives you purchasing power as well. Because you only purchase what you're really called to, right? Versus this, it's like, what is it? Shooting in the dark. I'm going to shoot and see if I hit my target. Okay. And I mentioned this before, like several times, because the holidays are coming up. It gives us a quick reference for loved ones who wish to gift us some decks. And that's especially true for those who have wish lists that are public facing that you can share. So yeah, that is my lecture on wish lists. And it's like the why, the who, what, when, where, and why. I wanted to answer all of that so you guys can ponder these things. This particular course, it's not heavy on assignments per se. It's more so on more of lectures and discussion. And there are activities you can do. You can do the spreads. You can engage in the Facebook group, Abundant Life Tarot group, and have discussions. I put, for each lesson, I put a thread so people can go in and discuss their experiences with their journey of collecting, and just recognize that it is a journey and it's very personal. Yes, we all do similar things. We had a good laugh over our similarities, of the kind of person that is a tarot collector. There's some similarities that were just striking, actually. And we do that collectively, but individually, we are called to decks for a multitude of reasons. I'm just asking for you to explore what those reasons are. That's all. Be more intentional and mindful about your deck procurement. With that being said, I'm going to stop sharing the screen now. And I'm going to thank you all for joining me today on this lecture. More will be coming as time permits in my schedule. I really enjoy doing these because today I had folks, I need to start remembering Instagram. I put it on Instagram and people were finding me there, and I was so appreciative of that. So I love engaging with you all. Definitely come along for the ride for the next Zoom lecture so we can engage together, because I also realize that not everyone is on social media. And this is why I do these lectures on Zoom, and I put it on my website. I put it with the course. Like this lecture will go for under lesson 3A, so you'll be able to find it there. Similar to the first lecture I did, it's located in lesson 2. And that way, if you're not on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, maybe you're only on Instagram, I'm going to make sure that folks get the Zoom link and they can join in that way. So you don't have to mess with social media if you don't want to. So that's it, folks. I am now happy to say that the whole thing recorded. Yay. I wish I would have recorded. It would have saved me so much time and energy. But that's okay, because I learned something. Which is we want to do this, but we want to have it with everyone. And maybe it won't be with everyone sometimes. Sometimes it'll be just like me running through my lecture notes just this way and sharing the screen in the way I did. But today I had a lot of fun interacting, so definitely join me, okay? I know I'm beating a dead horse, as I do often, but it means a lot. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Let me know if you have any questions, share your thoughts, your suggestions. We all want to hear from you. There will be many places and opportunities for you to do so. All right, take care.